You're watching part 4 of the Semi-Slav Defense Dismantled. For the sake of this video lesson, this opening line will be our choice of reference. If you haven't already done so, set up your physical chessboard in pieces. When you play the Semi-Slav defense, you're going to have to be ready for complicated positions. That is one of the benefits of my training, that you will know what to do in any given situation. This video is divided into two segments. The first half is going to deal with White's move after a3, planning to push the pawn to b4. Black has four main ways to counter White's plan of playing the pawn to b4. The second half will be examining positions after bishop to g5. We're not going to close the bishop in on c1, but play the bishop to g5. In this line's continuation, the discussion starts after White's 11th move, a3. Let's take a look at White's four main move candidates. After a3, White plans to play the b pawn to b4. Rook d1 is central play. e4 is the thematic pawn push, and knight g5 is headed for the e4 square. Black has four ways to counter White's plan of playing the pawn to b4. And here are Black's four main move candidates. Black's first move candidate discourages White from playing b4. But also Black has to consider the weakness of the c-pawn. Now let's examine Black's second choice candidate, a6. After b4 is played, play the pawn to a5, and this puts pressure on the b pawn. Queen e7, and this puts a double hit on the b pawn. Attack on the wing is countered by an attack in the center. Counters this threat by playing the e6 pawn to e5. Third move choice candidate, Queen e7. Decides to centralize his knights. Please be sure to include all of these key points in your notes, so that when you go back and examine the lines, you will be able to apply the strategies. Now it appears that white just won a pawn. But if you keep watching, you'll see that black is going to regain the pawn. Can you find the move for black? Threatening checkmate is a stronger move. The threat is stronger than the capture of the D pawn. Lastly, we consider black's fourth move choice candidate, Rook C8. Now this is the tactical line. Black's play here on the C file is dynamic. He jettisons the C pawn, and you'll see why shortly. Looking at the position, you'll say, well, why didn't he retreat the bishop? Now he allows the bishop to be captured because this opens the C file. The threat now is queen g5, so white captures the bishop on f3 instead, trying to save the knight. Now examining lines after white's 11th move choice candidate, Rook D1. The tactics seem to favor black, but that's something that you can work out on a chessboard later. But the idea is to practice and get the feel for these different positions. Okay, now it's b5, bishop d3, and bishop b7. Now we look at white's second move choice candidate, rook to d1. Now this places the rook on the same file that the queen sits on d8. Check. Check.
Check. Okay, here we are again. This time, instead of resetting the board back to move 1, we're gonna just go back right before white's 11th move. This time we're going to examine e4. White plays e4. The first two candidates were pawn a2 to a3, and rook d1. Okay, e4. And of course, we've seen before how this move is counted. The feature of white's game is two pawns on the forefront, e4 and d4, while the stronger pieces are held in reserve. They're going to spring into action, whereas black's game is attacking in oblique form from a slanted fashion. The two bishops on the diagonals. And later the queen would be moved to either h4 or g5 to attack the white king. Check.
Okay, what we're gonna do, go back to the starting position. Okay, now we're going to look at knight g5 for white's 11th move. Now, in this position, you also have to watch out for bishop takes h2, the bishop sacrifice, because the bishop takes h2, but it does not seem to provide much for black. And after f3, unless black plans to do some major tactics here, but I think the knight will move. So h6 is the common move in this position. And the engine says that this position is equal.
This game is a training exercise to prepare you for the next lesson. I encourage you to set up your physical chessboard in pieces so that you can follow me.
The plan here is to capture the pawn on d5 before placing the bishop on g5. Alternatively, we can play b3 first with the idea of placing the bishop on b2 for fianchetto. But that's a different plan. I like this move because it pins the knight to the queen. It pressures the piece that's guarding e4 for black. In addition, the pawn thrust from e2 to e4 is a thematic push for white in a lot of games. Notice how the bishop on d6 mirrors the bishop on d3. For the next 2 or 3 moves, black will mirror the first player's moves. It is a defensive maneuver used in martial arts as well. White played h3 to keep a piece off g4. Black plays a6 to keep a piece off b5, although there is a pawn on c6. However, notice how the dark square bishop along the b8 to h2 diagonal is a good bishop. The pawns are on light squares. The bishop is on dark squares, so it's only logical to try and trade off black's good bishop. Both sides are castled. Both sides play a rook to the e file, and both sides have a pawn on h3 and h6.
I got the skills, they making dollars. Blow minds full time like a Rhodes Scholar. Suit up armor like a Mo Rider. Glowed up, I drop jaws, make it say
The knight on h5 is offset at the moment, and white can exploit this by capturing the bishop on d6. This buys time to place the queen on c2. Now the knight sits on h5, doing nothing. Black is going to x-ray the queen on c2 and plans to push the a and b pawns. White has taken measures to make sure that his king side is safe and will now focus his attention on queenside play, the light squares. with moves such as knight f3 to d2, pawn b2 to b3, to deny any of black's pieces the c4 square. From time to time, you'll see black play the pawn from a6 to a5, and this is played against white's potential plan of playing his pawns on a2 to a3 followed by b2 to b4. This is in some variations. Now it is time for wild tactics. White will play the knight to f4, and there are two continuations. One will result in the queens being left on the board, and the other continuation will result in a queen trade. This is how the game might continue.
Check.
Okay, this line ends here. Now we're going to take a look at the second line. Same move beginning with knight f4.
I got the skills, they making dollars. Blow minds full time like a Rhodes Scholar. Suit up, armor like a mall rider. Glowed up, I drop jaws, make it say ah.
Check. This final lesson is middle game.
Black's last move was moving the king over to f8. Tactics require careful planning, which means that we begin with a strategy. So what should we do as white?
Think attack.
When we start a game of chess, the objective is to develop with an attack. If you haven't already done so, construct this position on your physical chessboard in pieces and follow me. Pause the video if you have to. First move for white, rook to a3, the thematic rook lift. This move is played against white's plan of bringing the rook to f3, knight d4. Check. Check. There's a double hit on the knight on d4. The bishop on the d1 to h5 diagonal stops the knight from going to e2 for a fork. The purpose of this move is to pin the pawn to the queen. In the calculation process, you look for threats, checks, and captures. Here the threat is rook takes knight on d4, and pawn can't recapture because the queen will fall to the rook on e1. And we have an endgame of 2 major and a minor versus 3 minor and a major.
I got the skills, they making dollars. Blow minds full time like a Rhodes Scholar. Suit up, armor like a Mole Rider. Glowed up, I drop jaws, make it say ah. To be traveled with my attitude so jacked that I loaded a rapper with it. I can't be stopped. I'm a juggernaut. become a